Thanks again for joining us here once again for the WPG Academy 2024. We are very honoured to have good friend and percussionist Garrett Mendelow. Garrett, thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're really looking forward to your session. Oh, I think we might be muted.
There we go.
There we go. That's okay.
As I was saying, absolute pleasure, Tim.
Yeah, no, this is going to be great. And also a special thank you because you've been, out of all of the coaches, more sort of hands-on with some of the coaching, particularly last year and this year. So from me, thank you so much for working with all the guys on. We've been doing some work on John Sathas's Kyoto this time. So we will showcase that next, within the next 10 days, I believe. So anyway, we should move on. We're going to start with Noah. Hey, buddy.
Hello.
Hey, Noah. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
So the floor is yours. If you want to just say a little bit about yourself to whoever's watching and what you're going to play, that'd be great.
Yeah. I currently live in Texas right now. I got my undergrad in music ed at UNT, and I'm getting a master's in performance at Texas A&M Commerce right now. And this is a recording of the first and fourth movement of Reflections on the Nature of Water. It was recorded about a year ago, and I'm planning on bringing it back since it's like on a lot of lists for competitions. I just kind of want to have it as like a back pocket piece, maybe complete the whole thing. So yeah.
All right, great. Garrett, I forgot to ask. Do you want to hear the whole thing, or you can put your hand up if you're ready to make some comments? Whatever you want to do is fine.
He's only doing 1 and 4, correct? And I'll listen to 1 through 6 if you got it. But yes, I think just play them all, and we'll talk about both.
Okay,
of them.
Great. Just to check, Noah, that's all on one clip, right? Because I only have one video clip.
Yeah. Both movements are in one video.
Cool job. All right.
Cool. And before we start, I wanted to try giving Noah a little exercise. I want to try this. Could you turn off your audio while you are watching your video and just look at what's going on in the video itself? I just want to start with that exercise. Cool. Right. Let's do it.
All right. We'll play the whole thing then. Here we go.
Excellent job. So this exercise that I just gave you is kind of one I give all my students, except I tell them to record themselves and then watch themselves. You already did the record half, but you've obviously done this with other teachers, and you've probably listened to it back and forth. I want to get your first impression. Did you notice anything from watching you just move and play and have the audio kind of be divorced from that?
Yeah. I think the experience of watching the first movement without audio is very different than just listening to it without the visual. If I were to map out my motions based on what I hear, I think like whatever motions I'm making that I would visualize would be very different than how I'm actually moving. I always tell myself like I'm a person that doesn't love extraneous motion, but there is so much extraneous motion in that first movement that I think that just kind of made me realize it really doesn't match the character really. But I think that when I actually am actively playing, the motions are appropriate, but I think it in transit from phrase to phrase. I think I move a little out of, you know what I mean, out of character for the piece.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know what I focus on a lot is the appropriation of bodily movement when it comes to playing pieces, whatever it is, multi-percussion, marimba, vibraphone. It's all relevant. And you hit on it by saying the word appropriate. Of course, while you're playing and you know the characters between those two movements very well. I'm sure you know them for the other four, but these are the only two we have. But yes, in between kind of episodes, we can lose tension if we're making extraneous motion. We can lose time, which we should talk about for this piece for sure. And definitely that motion can be perceived by an audience in a different way than what you intend musically, or what kind of character you're trying to embody for that specific piece or movement or whatever therefore. But just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, because actually that's kind of like the next half of the process, is when you prepare for performance, whether it be in a competition setting, recital setting, or, you know, recording setting, you want to make sure that you have all your boxes checked. And fact of the matter is, people are watching you, not just listening to you. So, you know, it's a really percussion's a very unique thing. We're not choreographing movement, but the more we can kind of appropriate our movement to any individual musical circumstance, we definitely have more opportunities to engage with an audience and to really help us say what we need to say, because our bodies are doing so much. It would be a shame to ignore it. So yeah, so let's start with movement 1. Overall, my first impression, I mean, I'm not going to give you too many things that you have to do. I'm giving you options. So just lay that out right there. I'm not going to say you have to do this. I might say I would do this. My first impression right off the bat is the hardest thing for me when playing this movement of the piece was choosing mallets. This is a really hard one to choose mallets for. And I'm surprised to say that your mallets are just fine. Usually I change all my students' mallets. They're either too hard or too soft. I think yours did a really good job of being on the top of the instrument and articulating, and then also having that really nice singing character in the middle to low register. So bravo. Tell me a little bit about your process in learning this when you started this movement.
I learned this movement after I learned 4. So I think I knew I wanted 2 contrasting movements. I wasn't too sure which of like the slower, because I use this for my my graduate audition tapes. So I knew I wanted 2 contrasting movements, but I wasn't too sure which one to go with. I went with 1 because I thought that it was just a really good way to demonstrate like articulation control and touch control. And I wanted to exercise that a little bit more. That was just kind of like a weaker point for me at the time. And yeah, so going about learning it, I don't know what you mean. Do you mean like just like the learning process, or?
Well, actually, you already kind of touched on what I wanted to hear. I want to hear more of your musical intention before I start nitpicking at little things, but you took it as an exercise in articulation and control of sound, which
I also thought it had somewhat of an irregular form or pace. It just had like something about the pacing was just like off for me, and I really liked that. I wanted to see how well I could sell that and make it sound a little more natural. A lot of the recordings that I heard before was just kind of like, oh, it just kind of moves through, you know. I wanted to make every scene of that movement sound unique and intentionally placed, because I feel like I was lacking that in a lot of the recordings that I heard leading up.
Okay, well, definitely a really good evidence of articulation control and control of your sound. I don't think I would really say too much about that. Maybe one suggestion later, but one thing a lot of people will miss, and I am guilty, I'm one of those people, is conceptualizing time within this seemingly almost improvisatory score. Because there's nothing in here to give weight to playing with rubato or any liberty. And one thing that really changed how I play this movement is practicing it with a metronome. Really placing those, once you get into those rolls in the third line, really placing those notes in the right space, and not so it's like spot on with the metronome, but the relationship between the notes and the space between them should be relatively the same throughout the entire movement. And that's what I would say that I was missing, especially like if we're in the fourth line you have the the 2-note chord with the D and the F, and then then you have the 4-note chord, the C, G sharp in the left hand, and the E flat G in the right hand. So you have that space is an 8th note on the hit, a dotted 8th note rest in between, and then that 16th note at the end. It was almost the same. It was just a little more spaced out than your next line here, that first bar, where you have that same set of notes again, where you have the F and the D and the E flat G, G sharp C in the left hand, but there's only an eighth note of space in between those hits. So Druckmann is trying to establish that those notes are gradually coming closer together within those two lines. So I would really, the next exercise I would try practicing with a metronome, and you'll start to realize how far apart those spaces are in your recording. Because like I said, I really don't have anything to say in regards to sound, but timing is what people think about when they think of a percussionist, whether you're a soloist or not. And unless it says tempo rubato, giving you the liberty to play with time, then you have to try in some way to adhere to that sense of time and the note placement. Makes sense?
Yeah, that's all great. Yeah,
awesome. There was one more part actually in the the second page, the poco stringendo. Kind of felt like a stringendo should actually more like kind of push a little bit more, and then we come right from that poco stringendo into the fortissimo 6/4 at the top of the third page. Now, musically speaking, if we're coming out of something that's gradually getting faster, I don't think we should lose speed on those kind of those small notes coming into the main roll. We should really connect them a little bit more. At least I think that would be musically appropriate. Do you know what I'm talking about? We kind of came out of that roll, the second bar of the top of the third page, and then you laid into the accent really nicely on that low B, and then it just kind of started to gradually increase in speed, almost like a bouncy ball. But what if it were and my singing is horrible, I apologize. But more kind of like lay into that note a little more tenuto, and then the other notes, those other grace notes, really just kind of arrive into the roll with those.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
That's a really good suggestion. Yeah.
That way you have a contrast between that stringendo, probably one of the first musical instances where you're actually pushing tempo, and then what do you have at the top of that last roll?
We'll go back to the score. Hold on. Tenuto.
Yeah. That's your first two and only two instances in that movement where you have the liberty to play with time, but it's suggesting that you speed up or slow down. You, of course, have the liberty to decide how much you speed up or slow down, but I would just really try and contrast those a little bit more. And then that way you can come back into this recapitulation where you establish a sense of time, and combined with your, great sense of tonality, you can really just, you can sell that ending because your tone and your articulation is great, but you really just have to sell that sense of time. One last thing for this movement is I was losing the bass notes on not the grace notes at the ending, but like the triplet 16ths and then the quintuplets at the end. Yeah. And then, one more thing. This is kind of a cause for debate. The last bar, hit and hit. Now, when you look at yourself playing and you're playing back the video without audio, do you think you're holding that motion as long as the note? Yeah. So you can roll it if you want, because kind of Druckmann is sustaining that note through longer than a marimba actually would. So rolling it is an option. But if you are going to hit that note, what I would just do is boom, boom, sustain into that hold. Does that make sense? Kind of sustain for the length that you want the note to actually resonate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all for the first movement, really. I think that's enough to give you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Movement 4. This is also the one I started with because it's my favorite movement. Thoughts on this, watching yourself without the sound?
So just because this movement's a little more constant motion based, like there's very few times where you ever stop playing. It's more towards the end. I didn't really have too much issue with my motion. I did notice that I wasn't a fan of like, I think I got a comment on this last time, but I wasn't too much of a fan of how loud or how present the left hand was, especially like visually, because I just kind of noticed that I kind of got in the way, and like the entire side of my body like moved with the ostinato, which is cool, but I think it didn't really help with the like literal visualization of the melody that's happening on top of it and how that weaves in and out of the ostinati. But yeah, other than that, things I noticed, I did do like kind of like the weird extra motion shake before I start, like shake the mallets before I start thing. I would love to say I've gotten rid of that by now, but I don't know. I need to go back and watch a video. So
yeah. For all my talk on bodily motion and appropriation of movement, I think what the hardest part for me is starting a piece. So that shake will be there probably, but when you start the piece, then it's counted, in my opinion. Anyway, I agree with you. I didn't see too much. You could probably look at the rests in between musical instances here and maybe find something, but that's probably about it. I do agree though, like even from listening to it, the left hand is definitely a little hot. What I do with mallets here is I usually have 2 mallets in the left hand with the same core, but I give my my number 1 mallet a little bit more wrapping. So you could try that just because it's in a lower register of the instrument, but I still want it to articulate both at the top when we have the kind of more marcato or staccato 16ths and triplets, sextuplets. Yeah. And then in the right hand, I have matching mallets. I think they're akin to like some medium hard Van Cise mallet or something. My cores, I built my mallets for this piece when I had done it, and the cores are the exact same as the Van Cise, but I use rattan handles and I use my own yarn and kind of in between stuffing. And that worked for me. I played 4, 5, and 6 when I was at ARD. So yeah, that was a nice hall to be in for this piece, actually. Very good hall. But yeah, really, it's hard. You have to find mallets that not only work kind of against each other when you're playing this rhythmic ostinati stuff in the left hand, but then kind of converge when you're doing the 16th alternations and the sextuplet work. So this one I would give a little bit more thought in regards to mallets. Yeah. Also, just touch. You really the left hand is actually really difficult to make look easy, but I would really try and just see how should almost be like that. Like if you've got your hand almost like moving individual fingers, that's how easy it should be on the keyboard. And what would really help that for me is I actually practiced sitting on a bench while I was playing or on a stool, because even though my body movement wasn't inhibiting anything musically, like I was swelling, right? The body's moving a little bit. My upper body was getting in the way of my left arm and left hand's ability to make free flowing motion. So try being seated, raise a stool as high as you can and try and construct these ostinati with just moving the arms and the wrists and not so much the torso side to side. We want to move horizontally, but for that to happen, our body actually needs to be a little distant from the elbows, so we have free range of motion. It's just like they teach on piano. They don't teach playing flat like this. They teach kind of like the curved hands, like a train could run through or something like that. Kind of the same principle with marimba. You want the train to be able to run through your arms underneath, almost, at least when you're at the keyboard. So that's just a thought. Musically, I thought you did a really nice job. Visually, one thing that was hard for me was the misterioso. Think about visually conveying that.
Okay.
How would you convey that with your facial expression? How would you convey that with your bodily movement? And more importantly, how do you perceive this gradually getting più agitato? So we're gradually becoming more agitated until we get to da-da-da-da-da. Is that the full point of agitation right there? You know, we're mysterious, like, then eyes widen, more agitated, and then more engaged when we come to da-da-da-da-da. And then back to gently swelling, something that we're familiar with, something that we enjoy. And that cascade was actually that was brilliant. That was really nice. Yeah, no need to change anything there, but really just highlighting these characters, these little characters within each character movement is very difficult. So just being conscious of it is already going to help you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, that's maybe it. I think I didn't watch all of Kai's lesson with you, but he actually made a really brilliant point about the ending, about kind of having a cheeky character at the end. You know, make that kind of like, I mean, almost the whole movement can have that cheeky character outside of that misterioso section, really almost playful. But that ending for sure, like I've gone back and forth between doing like a one-handed roll and then letting off with the left hand, making it really kind of a da, like that. You know, maybe you could experiment. You don't have to do it that way, but find a way to really sell the ending. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I've always like thought in my head that it was like a little, you know, like cheeky funny. But I think that was like just the funny side of my brain. And I don't think I ever expressed that musically, because I was like, oh, this is repertoire. Like there's no way, you know?
Yeah.
But I do enjoy that is like a agreed upon thing about this piece. Yeah.
At least between me and myself and Kai it is. But
yeah.
you know, that's what you just said is very interesting, is kind of you were battling your initial instinct to have that character. But that's what's going to make it yours. Like maybe your instinct, as far as playing instincts, you should, you know, not try and, you know, accept for face value or what your first interpretation is. But in terms of character, if you have a way to kind of sell yourself in the piece while also obeying the context of the score, that's going to make for a very interesting interpretation. And I'm not going to watch anyone else. I'm going to watch the person who's more kind of themselves within the confines of the piece. Confines is maybe a more restrictive word, but you know, you have to obey the score while also being the person you are. And that's what a lot of people who come to see you play, regardless of format, will be interested in. So, you know, they don't want to see you be Jihei. They might want to see you make as many right notes as Jihei. They don't want to see you be Kai, but again, actually same thing. They both do a really good job of hitting the right notes, but they don't want to see that. They want to see who Noah is, because they're not going to know you until they see you and see you play. So show them. Don't keep them guessing. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, you know, you only got 2 movements here, but you're doing a really, really nice job. Any questions?
No, this was all really great information. I'm really glad that I was able to do a pass of this without audio, like not knowing at all like what it actually sounds like. I think it opened my eyes to a lot about visually, what I do visually, and what I express in more ways than just my face. which is great. Yeah, I think this was immensely helpful.
No problem. Thank you. And I'm going to do this for everybody because it is valuable. And for me, I do have to work on my face because I have a very expressive face. So you're lucky to have something a little bit more plain. I got dealt with this. Anyway, I rest my case. You did an excellent job, and I'm looking forward to the final version with possibly the rest of the movements.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Noah.
Well done, Noah. Thank you. All right, so we're just waiting for the next artist to come backstage. They're not here at the minute, so I'm not quite sure what's happening. However, we can have a little chat because we didn't really at the beginning. Garrett, what have you been up to, like, sort of in terms of like, projects and stuff?
Yeah, so, God, it's been kind of a whirlwind since COVID. Basically, during COVID, I was doing a lot of online teaching, not too dissimilar to this. And I tried to give an online concert, and it went okay. I mean, I performed well, but it's just like, who watches an online concert, right? And then, I practiced pretty much the entire pandemic. I put out my first album, Speaking to His Craft, available on pretty much all platforms. And then it was kind of time. I had all this practice time. So I decided I was going to do a Xenakis album with all the duos and the solos.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically just, as much as I love Xenakis, it just kind of sucked the life out of me, recording pretty much, 84 minutes of music I did it in a 3-week span. And then I had my collaborators come in and we finished up the duos in a 1-week time frame. So, and then it was just 3 months of editing, which was crazy. But we did it, and the album's out on Bandcamp. I just individually released it. And yeah, ever since then, I kind of just been taking things easy. I really only am committed to doing the repertoire that really not only speaks to me, because there are a lot of pieces that speak to me, but I feel that I was just talking to Noah, pieces that kind of allow you to bring out your own character or different sides of you. So one of them in the back of me right now is this cage in a landscape. So that was a really nice video that I got to make in Golden Gate Park here in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And just doing a lot of teaching. And I just bought a ton of new drums, and I'm looking forward to doing a new couple of video projects. I've got Andy Akio's Cartograph. I'm doing a version of that, and I have my first 24-inch kick bass drum ever, so that's going to be awesome for that.
Nice, killer.
Yeah, I've never had a 24 before. Plenty of 28s, but no 24. And then I'm debating whether to record Rebond again, but use different drums than what I used on my album, because there are kind of some drum combinations I really like to use, but for different individual movements. And in Rebond, I like to play both movements together. So yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot in my head.
What's going on?
Yeah, but I need to actually do it. So of course, musicians know that's the hardest part.
Yeah, right, for real. Okay, I think Andy is here. Andy, how you doing, buddy? You okay? Oh, I think you might be muted. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought I turned it on, but I accidentally turned it off.
All right.
I'm the first to have that problem today, so you're not.
All right, over to you, Andy.
Yeah, Andy, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How about you?
Doing well. Your recording was fantastic for Kyoto, by the way. It made my life a lot easier.
Thank you.
But yeah, now I'm looking forward to seeing you play a solo. So what do we have today?
I have Etude in C sharp minor by Casey Cangelosi.
Okay, awesome. Casey's music is awesome. So maybe first tell me a little bit about your time with the piece, and then I'm going to give you a little weird directive before we play it.
Okay. So I mean, the piece, how it started, or how I got it, my professor assigned it to me because we were talking about competition pieces, and I've always played a lot of really choppy, fast stuff, and his thing was like, well, I mean, it has some of that, but also there's a ton of space in here to show your own musicality. So I mean, the more that I've played it, the more that I've loved this piece. And I liked it to begin with. I also feel like it's one of Casey's pieces that isn't super played like super often, which is a shame because it's a phenomenal piece. But yeah, I've been playing it since September of last year of 23. And yeah, that's it. I mean, it's been under my hands for a while.
Great. Awesome. So the this weird directive I gave to Noah seemed to be very productive. What I would like you to try and do is to, while we're playing the video so I can hear and see what you do, turn your audio off so you can only observe what you're doing visually, because of course I know you know what it sounds like, but I want you to see if there's connection musically between what you're doing and what you're seeing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Roll.
All right, let's do it.
Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, impressions of watching yourself without the audio.
I feel like physically I move in like a flowy way at the less busy parts, but when it gets to like the end, I know exactly what part it is. It's once the left hand starts to play those scales, right? My playing gets a lot more. It gets very choppy visually, right? And I know that's because I do panic during that part specifically, just because it's hard.
I mean, you're asking me if you're right. No, I mean, these are your impressions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, all I wanted you to do in that exercise was just to be aware of what's going on, divorced from actually hearing the piece. And if that's your impression, that's your impression because you just watched it. One of the things I noticed maybe, and this is probably not musically relevant, but it might help you, is you do a lot of footwork in sections where you probably don't need to. Like there's a lot of mini steps that you're taking. Just one thing I struggled with is how much I was moving my feet and how disconnected that made my upper body because I had to be in front of everything that I was playing. But if you I was telling Noah earlier, if you practice like with a stool, seeing how much of the material you can do from when you're seated in one spot, you'll be amazed at how free your arms and your hands can be. So just an exercise, you know, if you have to step, I mean, obviously there's a lot of up and down motion in this. So maybe that means having your legs spread in a way where you can move up and down the instrument, but definitely with less steps. I think you can do that. That was the big visual takeaway for me. What I loved was your ending, how you really just held that last note. Because if I was watching that and I didn't know how your marimba sounded, I could have sworn that note was lasting about 4 seconds. That's what you were doing visually, which I really loved. Good. So let's go from the top. This isn't a piece I've played before. So Casey, please forgive me if you're watching this. My kind of impression, first of all, is you have rubato espressivo pesante. I think you're doing all of those things. So right off the bat, really nice. What I would say, though, is when you practice that span of notes, you know, let's say those triplets are within quarter equals 63. Let's say it's the slowest tempo. This motive going up to I guess it would be the 5th beat, given how Casey has it written. It's worth the value of 3/4 notes. Do you think you played it faster than that or slower?
I think I played it a lot faster than that.
I agree. So for something that's marked espressivo rubato, you know, like I would try, just for the sake of experimenting and being aware of the timing. Of course, that's relative. Try and see what it would take to get you to fit all of those notes into 3/4 notes at quarter equals 63, and see how much slower that is. Because it is, based on how it's written, that top bar is a 5/4 bar, because you've got the 2 triplets that are one beat at the beginning, 1 set of triplets at the end, and then 3/4 notes value worth of this motive going up the instrument. So obviously you're not going to play it in time like that. That would be against intentions of the composer. But being able to play it in time like that didn't hurt anybody, especially not a percussionist. Also, you know, you're playing these first 2 accents in that motive very well, but then it kind of becomes like they're almost all accented. Maybe we could focus our energy more pesante on those accented notes, and then the rest of them are kind of just this effortless, slow to fast flourish. You know, really don't put so much weight in those notes. I would think less vertical and more horizontal on the instrument when you're playing those unaccented notes and those flourishes. And that's pretty much my feedback for anything that starts on the low end of the instrument and ends up on the on the high end. You could do that for all those motives, whether it's the timing or the weight or the horizontal, or vertical to horizontal motion. And then even in the second line here, you start slow, more in the middle of the instrument. You don't have that kind of like that accented notes, those accented notes, but you do have a gradual flourish, and it gets faster into the ritardando in the last beat, which is another 4 bar, so the fifth beat. So I would just be conscious of that, and that kind of happens all over the piece, so I don't need to talk about that anymore. I would just look at that instances of where you have to kind of time those flourishes and see if you can do it, and then let yourself go. All right. I really like the beginning of page 2. Maybe those notes at the top of the low register can glow a little bit more, be a little rounder. Other than that, that's just personal preference. It's a recording, so I can't really say exactly what you're sounding like unless I'm up close. Let's see. The third page. Does this remind you of anything you've heard on piano? Any musical excerpt?
Not that I can think of, but I mean,
or any composer, other than Casey.
Off the top of my head, not one that I can think of.
This very, very much. I feel like it's there's a piece in G minor by Chopin. It's in The Pianist. He plays it near the end of the movie. I think it's in G minor. And the reason it reminds me of this is because you have a very, very distinctive kind of middle octave of the instrument. And there's not a lot of ornamentation. It's a boom, boom, very sotto voce. That's kind of what I see the treble line doing in this section. And then all of the bass is very either marked or it's very subtle. The reason I bring that up is because in music by Chopin, the voicing is very clear. I feel like Casey also has written it to be almost like pianistic in this way. These very glowing middle register notes, which both on the marimba and piano are very present. And then this low end that's very gradually getting faster. It's not as extreme as the beginning of the piece. There's not a lot of weight here. So really, just try and make that. I don't know if you're using alternate strokes or if you're doing, I wasn't looking at that point, I was looking at the score, if you're doing all left hand, but maybe think more under the dynamic kind of radar for this section. You can really just make the entire right hand treble or that melody glow. And you do it really, really well when you come to I saw you doing it in the middle of these bars where you have the left hand doing the kind of like the grace note, almost one-handed roll. You do it very well there, but I think it can be applied to the other motives as well.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great. I wasn't sure if that made sense. I was saying a lot of things at once. Segment B, same thing. Recapitulates to segment A. And segment B is also like the same motive. So, even though I thought you played it very well, just that same level of clarity in the melody.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, this was it. Page 6. You obviously have rubato here, but one thing I would say is for the first 2 lines, even though you have that leeway with time, try and keep the relationship between the note values the same. Because based on what you played in the first beat on the first line of page 6, though those 2 eighth notes in the next beat were almost 16th notes. Yeah. And I understand you can push and pull, but make sure there's some kind of relativity, because when you get to the second line, you have 8 notes and then a set of 8-note triplets on the 4th beat. You have triplets coming into that second bar of the second line, and then you go into 16th notes, which, those 16th notes were fine. They were slow going into the newer section there. but definitely we want to create contrast between our duples and our triples. Okay. Yeah. And then I think I only had one more note. Page 7, last bar of the second line. Maybe you can guess what my note is.
The fermata.
Hey.
Yeah.
My response to that would be, what fermata?
Yeah.
Did you know, or did what was going on there? I want to know your musical intent, because you had 2 of them and I didn't see any of them.
Honestly, for the first time, I feel like it just, well, actually for both, it feels more like something that just kind of falls into the next line, right? As opposed to like stopping and waiting. And that's just kind of how it feels to me personally. It's not written there, but you know, I don't know.
That's a feeling.
I just like it a lot more.
So, but that's a very valid feeling, because that's something that's personal to you. So that's fine. Knowing that is a little better, that was intentional. But I'll add the caveat that we can create that feeling of falling into the next line while also maintaining that fermata. If we go ba 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 boom, increase the height of our motion, we can literally fall into the next line's motive. So you don't feel that you have to connect this musically while ignoring the fermata indication, but you can physically fall and create time and space between that note in the fermata and the initiation of the next line and then the line after that. Okay. I would just try doing that. Like, hold the note physically rather than sacrifice the fermata. And it's only a fermata over a 16th note. So I think your intuition is pretty good there, but it really felt like you went right in and just kind of had no pause whatsoever. So let's create that pause so we can feel your intention. You can musically hear your intention there, but audience is seeing an arc and physical arc into the next lines.
Okay.
Other than that, I loved your work in like page 8 and 9. That was nice. I mean, maybe you missed a couple of the octaves, but whatever. I mean, you can fix that. I don't need to tell you that you missed octaves. But I would be remiss if I didn't say I didn't hear a couple squeaky few. I love how you built kind of a stringendo into your poco poco crescendo into 10. That was really cool. That was like some string quartet stuff. So really keep that. I mean, I don't know the piece that well. Maybe there were some notes, but I love the energy. So keep up whatever you're doing musically there, and then you can correct the rest later. Is this a piece that you're going to be playing more, or? Yeah.
Honestly, I was going to compete with it again in December because I've had so much more time with it than the first. Because the first time I took it, I had from like that September to December to kind of get it and memorize it and learn it. So I don't know. Now that I've put a lot more time into it, even with like all the feedback that I've gotten from this, it is something that I want to like keep doing, or at least have in my back pocket for the next few years. So
it's a great piece. Like you said, I'm surprised more people don't play it. Hats off to Casey. Now get more people to play it, Casey. Yeah, I mean, I think you finished absolutely perfectly. Like I said, you really held that sustain. You could probably even exaggerate it a little bit more, but that buildup was musically just so raw. I loved it. Listen to Chopin. See if you can find out which piece that was in the pianist that he plays, because this is almost the same musicality that you can draw from. Yeah, and then work on that timing. Other than that, it's solid, man. I'm really happy you played this.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Take care, man.
You too.
All right. We're just waiting for Danny to turn up. He should be any minute. But Andy, have you got any like questions?
Questions, please.
I can't think of anything really on the spot. I do apologize.
Okay. I gave him a lot to think about. So.
So okay. So this is just like small things, right? So like mallet choice for this specifically, right now. I've gone through like a few different arcs with that, right? Like I've used wave wraps, the 4 3s and 2s. I've used the Pius 1 2s and 3s, and then here I'm using a Pius 2 in the Casey Blues, right? I like the way that sounds, but I don't like the way that Birch feels. So I mean, do you have any recommendations that are close to that?
Don't use Birch.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use whatever you want. Obviously, whatever makes you comfortable. But if you're saying Birch is making you feel uncomfortable, I first of all wouldn't use a mixed set of mallets if I could ever avoid it. I'm definitely a fan of rattan. I would give Erico's new mallets a try. Yeah, it's similar to what Pius has, but there's a little bit more graduation that you can derive from. You can use different levels of soft, levels of medium, levels of hard. Of course, I wouldn't use the 2 hardest. Those are more like for like some Concerti and The Source by Ichi Inagi. But if you want to use something more middle register, in terms of the character, I mean, I could see you using something like with a natural rubber core or something like earthy and gum rubber, like the Van Cise mallets. But if you are feeling like you're playing like Burton Cross.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend sticking to rattan because you're already taking away a lot of the mallet weight by bracing to other mallets. So definitely having a weighty mallet would be nice, but also something with a kind of like a multi-tonal wrap, like Wei Chen Lin's mallets also are really nice from Innovative. Actually, those might work really well because none of his mallets are very abrasive and he doesn't have many mallets to choose from. But yeah, I mean, definitely would need a matching inside too, I think, if you're going to do a lot of the flourishes alternated. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, I didn't really have too much of a problem with the mallets you were using. I think the essence of the piece was there. But when you mention it, like if you're not comfortable, those are a couple of the mallets I would recommend you trying.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, good question. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Andy. Appreciate you being here. It's an amazing job. Any other questions you've got for Garrett? I'm sure you wouldn't mind you emailing him. I know you guys have got contact details already, so it's all good. All right. Thanks, man. Very nice.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
You're very welcome. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. I think Danny will be here any second. But yeah, so you were talking about stuff that you've been doing. What's the future hold?
I know. I mean, I haven't really been applying to too many jobs.
Yeah.
I really like teaching younger pupils. I don't know. There's just something satisfying about being with like high school kids trying to actually get into a good school. Yeah. And then, rather than, kids paying a ton of money for college, wondering if it's worth it.
Yeah.
What do I say to that? I can't tell them whether it's worth it or not because it's based on their experience.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I'll see a job once in a while. I'll be like, oh, this would be a cool place to live. And then I'll apply and I'll either get an interview or I'll immediately get rejected. It's kind of like, that's what it is. I mean, they can't take too many candidates. So, yeah.
I think that's one of the things about my sort of working week, which is quite unusual. I mean, it's quite normal in England and, as you know, probably more so in Europe, but certainly in America, not so much. But my working week is so diverse. Like my youngest students are like, 7 and my oldest students are 50, and within that I have like master students and undergrads and postgrads and doctoral students. But the diversity of age range I quite like because it makes me think a little bit about how I structure the lessons. So it's not always the same,
Oh yeah, no, totally with you. I have a very wide age range of students, all the way from 4 until like, what was my oldest student this year was 81. So
wow, That
Yeah.
prompts me.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Or you
No.
teaching like drum set or something?
Oddly enough, I have a lot of people who are trying to get into like sound therapy.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things I do part time is I sell and repair and tune gongs.
Yep.
So this was basically a customer who came in. He bought a gong for me, and he's like, "Do you do lessons by any chance? I like the things you had to say." It's like, "Sure, yeah. If you want, you can stick around. I'm about to finish up, and I'll give you a lesson. You know, it's X amount of dollars per hour, and love to have it." So, yeah, I mean, that's also really nice. If I had a really good slew of consistent private students, I would be a happy camper. I'd probably make more than most people at academia, and I get to choose my students. So
you get to pick, yeah, totally.
yeah. But usually I don't exclude anyone. So
yeah, that's cool.
Hello.
Danny, how you doing?
Hello, Garrett. It's really nice to meet you. I'm doing great.
Good. You look like you're doing great. You look happy tonight. It's all good.
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to ruin it for you now, Dan.
Okay. Well,
You're not gonna have that smile when you're done.
On that note, I think I'm going to cue a video up. Danny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. So, hello, Garrett. My name is Dane. I'm from Croatia, Zagreb. My teachers are Igor Lešnik and Ivana Bilic. I'm 19 and I just finished my second year at the academy. And today I will play for you Side by Side, which is a piece I'm sure you know it pretty well. So we can get started whenever.
Yeah. Please tell Ivana I said hello. And I don't know Igor very well, but I've only heard good things. And the last time I was in Samobor, I had a really good time. Yeah. All right, let's hear it. All right. So I forgot to give you a little direction. I've been doing it so far through the classes. I was going to have you watch the video without sound and tell me what you thought. Of course, I didn't do that. So that would be my first chore for you to do, is to watch the video again, but without the sound, and see if you can musically see the things that you are trying to convey.
Okay.
Obviously, there aren't too many musical indications here, actually, but I mean, you memorized the piece, so good for you, first of all. You have very clear musical intention. So just see if that's reflected in your movement. And that's basically what I was having everyone do. Let's see, where do I want to start? I guess the second page of the score. So, I mean, I guess that's page 4. Second line, where we have the hemiolas between the right and the left hand. Do you have something where you can play those for me right now? Like a pad or like...
Yeah, I can play it on my shoulders, yes.
Yeah, let's do that. Have you played?
Just a second. Just so let me bring it up. Okay, so you said the second page?
Yeah, that second line, just the hemiolas with no accents. Just...
Okay, I should okay. Just so I give you an idea, I played this piece and recorded this 9 months ago, and I haven't played it since, but I should be able to do this.
You can do
so
it.
This should be no problem.
Yeah.
Just give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Now, are you playing the faster rhythm with the right hand or the left?
Yeah, I have a kind of just a second.
So what I'm doing is I'm crossing. So this. Yeah. So I'm playing the quarters with my left, and the yeah, it's just a one.
I'm sorry. Do you hear me? Do you hear me all right? I think my connection is like very bad. I think I could switch to a phone.
I can see what you're doing. It's okay. I can see what you're doing. Here's my point. Is that rhythm in the right hand of that hemiola should be the exact same rhythm you start the piece with.
Okay.
You're playing non-dotted eighth notes at the beginning. That's what it sounds like to me. It's what it looks like. It's very fast. It doesn't have to be that fast. Instead of yeah. Anyway, so really just slow that down. Yeah. So re-examine those rhythms, because it's kind of a common theme throughout the piece. We're really rushing the dotted eighth notes. Okay. Also, are you, again, of course, you played this a long time ago, but when you played it, were you playing at the edge of the conga at the beginning?
Yes, I did go from the edge to the not the middle, but yes, yeah.
Okay. Are you doing this for volume, or are you doing this for articulation purposes?
Well, I would actually say both.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
As long as if that's honestly what you're trying to do, fine. My only suggestion is you're starting at mezzo piano. A lot of people start this really too softly. It's mezzo piano at the beginning. Should actually be softer at the end than at the beginning. And most of the time, are you in the center of the conga otherwise?
Well, not the center, but like yeah, like the sphere around the center.
Good. That was kind of a trick question to see what you were doing. So bongos and congas, the sweet spot for bongos is going to be a little bit more towards the edge, but still relatively middle. and then congas is going to be a little bit outside of center. I wouldn't change that tone if you're doing that for a majority of the piece. I would try and keep consistent sound. So if you don't need to sacrifice timbre for volume, then I wouldn't. I would really just stay in the middle. A lot of people I've seen who have really nice interpretations, they play with like wooden timpani mallets, like heavy wooden timpani mallets. I like this. When I learned this piece a while ago, I've actually never performed it. I just learned it. I used kind of like a rubber, like a soft xylophone mallet with rattan, and then I like rubber, and then I wrapped it with a little bit of adhesive felt, so it took away a little bit of the attack sound. That's kind of my favorite. Of course, you can use whatever you want, but really consider the timbre you're getting from the sticks, because a wooden stick on skin heads could be a little bit too much articulation, depending on what hall you're in. Of course, if you have a very wet hall, that would probably be perfect. But most of the time, you're going to be in these dry recording environments or dry recital halls. I would really recommend kind of more like a rubber ball with some felt around it, because even then the rubber ball is going to slap at the conga a little bit. Your toms, did you have any method to tuning those, or were they just lower than the congas, kind of?
Well, my method of tuning everything was just for it to have like a scale, so that everything is higher than the last thing. And now looking back, I don't like the tuning of the toms, and I would probably tune the bongos even higher. And the congas are okay, in my opinion, maybe for now.
Yeah, I actually really like the tuning of your congas, and then your lowest bongo. Maybe the high bongo could have a like a synthetic head, maybe, but nothing like new skin. Maybe like a what one was I going to recommend? Like a skin deep. So it's obviously higher pitched, but still blends in with the sound of normal conga heads. Or you could just change all your heads to synthetic heads and then use a new skin head to get a really nice high pitch sound out of your 7-inch bongo. But the drums, what I like to do is I like to tune the heads the same pitch so that they resonate against each other. And usually, like, what are your toms? Like 14-inch, 16-inch, or something else?
These were, I think, 60, either 14 or 16, or 16 and even 18, maybe, if I can remember correctly. But I'm not sure.
So for an 18-inch tom, your shell is probably going to be around maybe like a C. For a 16-inch, probably around an E flat or an E, and a 14-inch is going to be actually between an E and an F sharp. Usually those are the pitches of the shells. If you want to figure it out the hard way, you can take all of the hardware off and then tap on the drum and see what pitch it is. But I really like when companies that sell drums, I know DW does it. Pearl doesn't really need to do it because they're pretty consistent, but they have the pitch of the shell written on the inside of the drum. But that'll give you optimal resonance, whether the shell is that pitch or not. The heads resonating against each other at that pitch sounds really nice and controlled. It doesn't sound flabby. It doesn't sound too high. Just really, let's think about, because you have really good sounding congas, bongos. Let's get some really good sounding drums in there as well. Some really nice tom-toms. Other than that, dynamics were pretty good. I'd say rhythm and time were the biggest takeaway for me. Like, really, like you said, you hadn't played this piece in 9 months. Is that correct? Yes?
Yeah.
You're not? Okay, good. So that's actually really good, because you put it away and now you're getting all this information to make changes. And if you're going to play this for a recital, competition, whatever, we need to address the issue of time, because timing needs to change. Go to where you're playing the timpani mallets. Boom, 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 boom. Don't even see a page number on here. My score's cut out, but I think you know which one I'm talking about. It's
yeah.
1, 2, Third page, top of the third page, subito pianissimo. Yeah. So timpani mallets, they sound good, but we really need this boom boom ba boom boom ba boom 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 ba boom boom. You know, that's still in time with the metronome. Boom boom ba boom boom ba boom 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 ba boom boom ba boom. And Kitazume really clearly writes the 2 16th note rests in between that top bongo and the low bongo. Boom boom ba boom boom ba ta ta boom 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 ba boom. That was like gradually disappearing. It was boom boom bum boom 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 boom. It's kind of like almost like a like we were taking a 64th note off every time. So really, if you retrain this piece, which I encourage you to do, use a metronome whenever you get the chance. Just really make that tight. All right. That was the biggest thing towards the end. And then, of course, we get to the last page. So yeah, everything towards the last page. Now we have eighth notes. Not dotted eighth notes. We have actual eighth notes. Okay. Are you now this morendo that we have here? We start at pianissimo. Are you trying to get softer up until that hand on the bongo, or is the hand on the bongo going to be louder than the drum stuff? What is your intention?
I haven't actually thought about that. I haven't thought about it that way, but now that you mention it, I actually don't know at this exact moment. I think
good.
Like it makes maybe more sense. Yeah.
Sorry, there's a little latency. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Sorry. Say what your intention was going to be.
So this is really a lot late, so it's kind of hard. So yeah, it makes maybe more sense for the hand to be the most quiet, but then again, it gives a cool effect if it's not the most quiet. So I think I need to try them both and then decide. Just saying like this and how it's written, yes, it should be the most quiet. Yes.
Should it? Look at the dynamic that you start that morendo with. But look at what you're playing those eighth notes with the hand, and then what you're ending with.
Yeah.
So it starts
it's
at
yeah,
pianissimo.
okay. I didn't see. Yes, it's pianissimo
okay.
and then piano. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but for me, this is actually very controversial because some people will have the stick go into the hand because the hand is naturally not going to make as much sound as the drumstick unless you give it a nice slap. But it's piano at the end with the hand. We have to, whether we decide the hand is going to be louder than the stick, we have to have intention. So that's all I would ask you is to think about whether the composer, Kitazume, intended for the hand to blend in at the ending with the stick, or if that little dot above the note almost implies that it's supposed to be even shorter than the notes with the stick and a little bit more articulated. Because I've seen it both ways. Both ways look great, but if you don't have clear intention when you're doing it, it kind of looks like you don't know what it should be. It just is what it is. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all about intention. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that's
in
about
my
it.
kind of opinion now that do you hear me at all, or is it super late?
There's a little latency. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's.
So I wanted to say that this is super hard. What I wanted to say is that, in my opinion, the last note should be louder and different, because then why would he write it with hand? So I think that's how it, in my opinion, that's how it should be. So that's what I'll try, but I'll definitely try the other example as well, for sure.
Great. Yeah, that's great consideration. And you're the one playing. Your opinion does matter. I could give you what I would do, but in this instance, I would just find out for yourself. Make it your own. But yeah, timing was my biggest issue for the piece. Your drums could use some tuning, but other than that, you're playing very well. You memorized it, so you just have to rememorize it, and you'll be great. Did we lose you? All right. Great job.
A bit.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. Danny, do you have any final questions? Or
I'm sorry for the connection issues. It's really hard to work this way.
Okay.
I don't know why it's so bad.
You're good. Any questions before we move on?
Yeah. What would you suggest? Before, when I was practicing this piece, practicing with a metronome was kind of hard because of the so many different parts that are connected, but maybe not rhythmically connected. So how would you suggest to overcome that issue, by putting a metronome on the 8 notes, or?
Really good question. For a piece like this, if I were preparing to perform it, I would make a click track for it, like a custom metronome. That way, when you go from section to section, you don't have to worry about the accounting for an 8th note or these dotted 8th notes that provide a little bit of latency. And then, because if you were to play the beginning of the piece with 8 notes on or quarter notes on, by the time you get to da 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 boom ba ba ba, you're already a 16th note or an 8th note off. So I would make your own metronome. What I would do actually for the beginning is what I did is I practiced it in quarters. So it was da 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 ba 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 ba. So that way, when I got to the hemiola motive on the second page, I already knew that my timing was going to be solid with that motive. And then, of course, you only have 46 repetitions of that first beat. So that would mean that 46, 4 in a hemiola. So you have 11 repetitions, and then you have but boom, but, like that. So you're counting 11 repetitions of 4 dotted 8s. Then you come to the last 2, which would be 6, da, da, and then the 8th note combination, da, boom, but. Then you go to start 22. So 22, you'd have to do the math. 24 into 22, 4 goes into 25 times. So it'd actually be 5 bars of 4 dotted 8 notes, and then the same motive, da, 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 boom, but. So you'd have to write your click track to reflect that if you were to do it that way. But that's how I would do it for the whole piece, because just like, the piece does not yield. It does not stop. It's just shifting from section to section. So write a click track that reflects that and make sure that you have solid time throughout the entire piece. And then you've got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Good question.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. And actually, I have another. Yeah, I have another question. So regarding the bass drum, we didn't touch on that. What do you think about the tuning? What do you think about the sound? And what do you think about, I had an idea to play it maybe with like a soft kind of mallet for the bass drum.
I mean, honestly, I didn't think too much about the bass drum other than the fact that it was missing the resonant head. But it didn't sound bad to me, which is why I didn't bring it up. When you pull off the resonant head like that, that actually shows me your intent. So maybe you didn't intend to play it that way, since you're asking about it. Like, you just kind of, was it already like that, or?
Yeah, it was like that, and I just didn't, at the time, I didn't give it enough thought, to be honest.
Okay. When I see people pull off the resonant head, it means that they want more articulation. So that's what I thought was okay about your interpretation, because the bass drum was plenty articulate. So if you're asking me straight up what I would do, I would put the head back on, number one. And then as far as the beater, I actually kind of like what you're suggesting is maybe not using like a mallet, like something fluffy, but something maybe like wooden, or like something with like more of a broad punch. That would be really nice.
Mhm.
And that way, when you get the resonant head on, you get a little bit more resonance from a heavier kick implement. That's a good idea. I would go with that instinct. I think that's really smart. I know Innovative Percussion has some different implements. I think every company has some kind of implements for bass drum that kind of have a concert beater. I think Vic Firth has one too. Just experiment. Half the things that you're wanting, you could make yourself. You don't have to to buy them, but just whatever you do, like more of like a round sound. I really do like a kick bass drum, not a concert bass drum. So yeah, that's my opinion, but you're gonna find what works for you. I honestly thought that the kick drum that you had worked just fine in that hall. So
yeah,
do whatever.
Okay,
do whatever you think is best.
Yeah, that's about it with the question. So thank you very much for everything and for understanding the delay issues.
No, happens all the time. You did a great job, Dan. Thank you.
Not that bad, Danny. Don't worry. Thank you very much. Good job. All righty, we're going to move to Jon now. Jon, welcome.
How's it going, man?
Hello. Greetings.
So
what are we doing today? I think we're doing
two
impressions,
pieces
right?
for you, right? Yeah. I've got also the minuet on here as well.
Oh, okay. Maybe if we have time, we can do that. Yeah, but impressions was my main idea.
Sounds good. All right.
Let me pull up the.
All right. So first of all, how long have you been working on the piece, or at least before you recorded it?
I don't even know actually. I practiced it a few years ago, 3, 4. I think it was like around Corona time actually. I think it was my kind of like trying to stay in shape piece when our academy was locked. Mm-hmm. And then there was this competition coming up in Finland, and I decided to record it as the snare piece for the video audition. So I just like pulled it out after 2-3 years. Like nice. I don't know, 2-3 weeks, refresh it, and just play. Yeah, I think that's about it. This was what recorded in February. No, April.
Awesome. So try a little exercise here before we play it. I want you to watch it without the sound, so that you are only seeing your movement as it pertains to the score, and you're going to tell me what your impressions are of your movement as it pertains to the musical
material. Should I mainly focus on the hand movement, or also like face gesture, everything combined?
Everything. Yeah. Good question. Let's do it.
Yes. Let's do it.
Nice job.
It's actually very hard to only look at it because it was like 140 pixels with the glitching. So I didn't really know what's going. Like I couldn't recognize anything from the face. But I remember I was trying to be as zen as possible, basically.
Really? Okay. Well, thanks for being honest.
It probably didn't look like it. Probably didn't look like it, but I tried.
No. You actually did, and that's going to be one of my comments. So, first of all, your technique is great. I don't have too much to say in regards to the actual snare drum. Maybe I would have tuned it a little lower, but this is personal preference. So, I mean, that's nothing. I really like how you started, and that zen kind of nature gives weight to this kind of first thing. And Martin Chiao didn't write any like characters between his sections, so he gives you the liberty to do that. So before we get into stuff, I saw that you have your snare drum ready to play. I have a feeling you're not going to need to do much playing, but how many different characters would you subscribe to this movement?
Well, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4, but 3 definitely, maybe 4.
I think 4. Yeah, 3 to 4. 3 to 4 is actually a good way to put it because one of them is very much kind of like a character we've already had before. It's just
recap, exactly.
Yeah, but good. That's what I was going for. Now, if we were to, I think we can all agree where the first character is, and I like that kind of zen nature you had because it's essentially just bolero variations is what I would kind of call the first character. Now, we're coming into this accelerando crescendo. Would you agree that the peak of that accelerando crescendo would be our second character at C?
Accelerando crescendo would be what, the end of the first page?
Yes, correct.
I would maybe say that's the transition to the second character. Second character is when the like more rudimental thing comes in. So it's when the last bar of the first page basically would say is the second character.
So C, yeah, exactly. We have a transition into our new character. We're kind of like wondering what is this about to be, and then C, we hit character number 2.
Yeah, exactly.
So good. So visually, what I would do is try to say this in some way, try to convey this. And you don't have to do it with your hands because I don't want things to get in the way of your hands. But I'm sure you know with busy marimba chops or with busy snare drum hands, your face can paint an image of what you're thinking you want to happen or what you want the character to be. So maybe like this section is very dense. Yeah. Maybe this can be a little bit more of like I don't know, kind of like a fighting game or a game phase. You know? So that's kind of what I was looking for. And then, of course, you mentioned the pixelation, and I was glad that wasn't just me. But still, I would maybe just kind of look at that. Dynamics were really nice. Really liked at 57 or D the articulation of the 5s. It's really hard to hear the differences of the side of the snare drum head that you're playing on, but I think you did that really well. Then we get to 78, which is probably the character changes more at E, but 78 has this first introduction of the tom. And I actually really like the bongo because you have to do these buzz rolls on a tom, and it doesn't really compete with the snare drum. So the bongo was actually really nice. You're the first person to do that, and I think that's really cool. How do you perceive that tom? If you could change it to any other instrument, metal, wood, or skin, what would that?
Metal, wood, ride cymbal.
Hey, good. We're on the same page. Awesome. So yeah, this is definitely.
Exactly.
Kind of like a ride cymbal part. And I think we can convey a little bit more of that. One piece I really like of Martin Chiao's, and I think you mentioned you were intent on playing, is Chick.
Yeah.
And Chick is very apparent about musical style and timbre. He's only using the snare drum, but this brushwork and the way he writes the kind of the last climax section gives a lot of weight to a lot of world drumming and like Brazilian drumming.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's really cool. And I just said, oh, I'm gonna march like a Brazilian caixa player for this, like, because
Exactly.
I played it every time. I couldn't stop bouncing, and I had to talk with my teacher. It's like, I was gonna play this for a competition. Do I want to get rid of that motion? And he's like, no, that's gonna make it different. So I would say the same thing for you here. If you feel that kind of ride cymbal activity, kind of like give it a little, bend over like you're playing on a ride cymbal.
A bit of whiplash action right there.
Yeah, don't get me started on that movie. But yeah. But yes, you could do the little, whatever. That's basically the character I was thinking of seeing. And you're right, the transition. I think the transition actually more starts on the letter here than before the letter, because you're not on the top
letter
yet.
E.
Yeah,
letter E,
I feel
right?
like that is the transition almost.
Yeah.
This was really nice. I really like that tom. And then my score, like the way it was copied, I had to flip it around.
Yeah, me too.
He is really cool, especially when the low tom enters.
I would have liked more bass on the floor tom, but I just recorded with a single zoom. If I did like try to make it better, I would just put another one on the bottom of the floor tom to give it the depth, because now we're just kind of like skim on the top. But it's fine. I think it's okay.
Sorry, you're talking about recording quality bass.
Yeah. The sound was really nice in live, but you couldn't really hear it you couldn't hear the low meat of it. Got you.
What I was thinking there, I wasn't really thinking that. Of course, I have to account for the fact that this is recorded and it's not in front of me. So, just give way to that. But what I would say is, now that you've taken the high tom out, and you have this higher instrument, which I'm thinking another instrument that would be really cool is like a repique, like a Brazilian kind of a high marching tenor. That would be really cool as well. And then to contrast, the low drum could be like a surdo segundo or something like that. And then you have that nice bass. You have this nice leathery head. And then you have the snare in the middle, which is like a caixa. So you have this kind of joining in. So that's kind of the thing, is like, if you're going to play these pieces and take that liberty, really cool to experiment with different drums, especially since you're only doing hits on the tom, no rolls. You don't need a very bouncy head, but you are on these high toms. Like if you use a concert drum, it's just eating up all your roll articulation. But if you use like a repique, which is like a timbale head almost.
That works.
Yeah, double-headed. It's almost like a double-headed timbale head. Or a bongo, which I did like. I really liked it. But now that you did the bongo, I'm thinking about other instruments. It really does give you a nice contrast of the single tones and also the buzz tones. So really just go for it, I think. I think you could have a little bit more there to work with. Anyway, I didn't have too much to say about the low tom. I wasn't even thinking about the capture. I thought it sounded great. But if you were to do like another video of this, that would really sell it. Just have something totally contrasting the snare drum on both sides, and the snare drum falls into the middle of the pitch spectrum rather than just kind of higher than all of the instruments. Ending was really nice. Tell me honestly, though, were you happy with your long roll at the end?
The very last one?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to listen again.
It's okay. You don't have to listen. But if you don't know, then it probably
maybe it wasn't ideal. Yeah.
I just thought like that whole line at the end, you did a really good job of these 1, 2, 3, and then we get to the long roll, and then the hands are totally exposed when they're together. Definitely can be more of a, and then I would almost personify that whole line as almost like a supplemental character, just almost like like almost like stirring maracas is how I feel about it at the end. Yeah, just a little thought. That's what I was kind of thinking of, is that could easily be a maraca part. Really, like, I know it's a snare drum solo and all you have is the two toms, or the bongo and the tom, that are at the very end, and they're sparsely used, but we can do so much to orchestrate the snare drum to give it different voice. And he does make a really good impression of this by giving, using different parts of the snare head. He really is trying to get different tones out of the snare drum. So we can sell this a lot more as a performer, both orally and visually, and really make it not just a snare exercise, but an actual composition, which it is. I mean, not to denote it at all. It is a composition, but I think there is definitely a difference, and I'm guilty of this especially, in how we approach snare drum and marimba or timpani. We kind of like separate them into, okay, this needs to be given more artistic precedence, or this needs to be this and that. And I'm not saying we do so willingly. It just happens. We put a huge board of music in front of us when we play a Xenakis solo, yet we play all this very, very extremely difficult Bach, and we're memorized, ready to go, and that's not that's not any one person. That's definitely me. Which is why I want to memorize all my repertoire, is so people see that I put equal work into every piece of music. But it really is kind of a thing that we take some parts of the discipline for granted, and not to say that you did it, because you did an excellent job, but really the point here is to use the snare drum more as a virtuosic instrument, and to voice as much as we can. That's kind of where I'm going with this. And the moment you're conscious of it, which I'm sure you are, because I've worked with you in Kyoto, and you're obviously a very, very good musician and already, but just to be conscious of it on instruments other than what you are comfortable with, you'll be solid. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any much more to say. It was very solid technically. Musically, it was there. We could just do a little bit more to make it, the next hit 5-minute video on YouTube, or a really cool 5-minute piece in a concert hall is primarily what we want. We want to play this at a concert and have it be a standout piece. Any questions for me? What? Oh,
I'm really sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. Any other questions?
In terms of this, maybe just actually, I know when I was recording this, I was pretty relaxed, and I knew I had time, and I didn't really and then of course the hands aren't as shaky. The piano sounds better when you are relaxed, obviously. It's just that it's much more different when you actually perform it live. If you have any how to prepare the hands, the hands, the body, the brain for things that are as sensitive as the intro here, for example, right? You get thrown straight into it. You have pianissimo, and the third bar instantly you have a sextuplet, right? Double stroke.
Yeah.
And oh, okay. You're waiting for it all the time, and if you derp that one, you feel oh, okay. I can go off the stage and cry in the basement or something.
It's a really good question, because snare solos are so much different. And what I did is, when I played Chick for Arde. It was my last piece, and the reason I framed it that way, one, I didn't want to have any chance of leaving my snare on before I played Reflections, because that's almost one of the worst things you can do in a competition, is leave a snare on and play marimba. Two, I knew by the time I was done with the first two pieces, I was going to be way warmed up to play snare drum. So I would only really worry about those things if you were starting a concert or a performance with snare drum, because there's so much you can do backstage, but there's even more that just playing on stage is going to do. You're going to get rid of those nerves. Your hands are going to be nice and warm and broken in. So that would be my first suggestion, is just to how you program the snare piece into your recital is going to do a lot for the nerves and a lot for the hands.
I don't think I've ever started any concert anywhere with snare ever.
And you still have problems. Right, that's good. But do you still have problems with nerves in that instance, or anything?
No, not really. It was just maybe if you have any special things that might change the perspective.
Hot water.
Or yeah, exactly.
I do the I've done it where I've had to start a performance with a snare drum solo. I'll just go to a sink, fill it with hot water, like Glenn Gould did. He used like really like boiling water, I think, but just fill it with hot water and rest your elbow up to your hand in it, and really get that nice and hot, and then dry it off. Go on stage. That honestly helps, because having circulation in this part is really going to do wonders for you. But you also went to Copenhagen, correct? Or you are at Copenhagen?
Yeah, I just finished Master 1 there.
Okay. Have you ever seen
2 weeks ago?
pianists backstage before a performance? Do you see what they do?
Yeah, well, I did a few times, like before the entrance exam and so on. I wear like gloves that are up until here, like wool or something, and I actually helped a lot. Just if it's a very stressful situation, like gloves, 10 to 15 minutes before. Just close eyes, deep breath, and just slowly visualize, like, let's say, the beginning of the performance or something. And I found out it works really well.
Like, a lot of pianists,
I could feel my pulse, going down, which is great.
A lot of pianists do that, and I think it works really well. The only other thing I would suggest is there are these muscle massagers that a lot of golfers use, actually, and you can vibrate it across your arm and your tendons. And what happens is, if you do that around this portion of your body, your hand just relaxes right here, almost numb, which can be scary if you're going on stage. But once that clears after 5 minutes and you get feel of your fingers, this part is so relaxed, and then you have so much mobility in your wrists. I like it. I use it when I play golf, because I really have to have relaxed wrists. But if you're playing snare drum, I would definitely recommend trying that. If you're curious about what I bought, I can send you a link. But yeah, definitely anything to kind of relax the muscles, and, like you said, slow down the heart rate. That's not only going to help with snare drum, it's going to help with everything. So yeah, awesome, good questions. Do we have time for the partita? I'd be interested in that if so.
We do have time, if you would like to make time.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, and then maybe same thing, watch without the audio. Excellent. Yeah. How long have you been working on this particular movement?
With very long pauses, I started maybe 2023 January.
Great.
Or maybe end of 2022, something like that. I basically was preparing the whole partita to play on the bachelor recital, which was like end of May 23.
I see. Yeah. Definitely used to play a lot of Bach when I was into marimba, and now I sadly am not as into marimba as I used to be. But I never got to this piece. You did a really nice job. It almost makes me want to do it. Almost. Great. I think one thing I would say is I really like the character, the musical character. And if you were watching, maybe there's something like it was a little pixelated, but maybe there's something more you can do with your eyes to make it more childish, more playful. That would be really nice. It's because it's a very fun little movement, and it goes by so quickly. You know, you could do something to kind of be in the moment and savor that moment, like really, smile, like wide eyes, like kid in a candy shop, kind of is how I would kind of describe the character mentality for this piece. It's a really fun little movement. I mean, I'm not going to give you too much because I don't want to have a chance at ruining something that's already special. And you're, of course, going to make your own musical decisions. One thing I was thinking, though, is that it could be a little slower. To my
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. That way, I mean, everything's very clear, but the 16th notes that come in can definitely have a little bit more rhythmic sonic clarity, and they were already actually very good. I'm very much nitpicking here because if you're going to come at me with this,
that's why we are here.
yeah, but also you have a better chance of phrasing those with the technique that you're using. And I'm assuming you study with Anders because you're at Copenhagen, and he has wonderful technique, of course, and no surprise you're studying with him. But yeah, I think that would just give a little bit more contrast to the phrasing of the 16th notes, and the slower phrasing of the 8th notes could actually build up really well. The second half of the minuet, I really like the differentiation and ornamentation in the first line at the end. That was really nice. And then if you take a slower tempo with the first movement, maybe we could start softer at the second minuet, and then maybe grow into the recapitulation in a way that is musically efficient for you, of course. But that was my thought.
I feel like I actually did the opposite. The Minuet 2 was actually like very boom. I led into Minuet 2. What I wanted to do is, like, if you look at harpsichordists, most of the recordings I've listened to, they do, well, probably all of them, because it's like historically done. They just turn off the main register and they only play on the second, like una corda, basically, right?
Yeah.
But I was then thinking, what do I play the whole second minuet on the ropes? Like, no, that's horrible, right? Also very hard, bad sound, and it's just funny, silly. Also, you don't have enough time to switch mallets, or you have, but then you would kind of lose the flow, or at least I feel like. So I just decided to do something completely different and lead into it, kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Lean into the minuet too, but absolutely the opposite works as well.
Sure. Obviously, you considered that, which almost makes my point mute. And then the fact that you brought up the harpsichord means you've seen a different version of this, and someone tried to attempt what I suggested. And I agree with you. Like, even if I hear it on harpsichord, someone going una corda is going to be like, well, why did the timbre have to shift so drastically to make the dynamics happen? And of course, harpsichord is not a very dynamic instrument, so it's a necessity almost. But lute and marimba are definitely more dynamic. So if you can have that intention without switching mallets, because I agree, visually that would be very disconcerting, is if we took that second ending and then just did it just for that one moment. It is a little bit out of character. What mallets are you using, actually?
I think it's Živkovic. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they were blue. Yeah, Živkovic.
Okay. Is that what you would use or are using now for this?
I probably will, just because I'm most used to playing this stuff with those mallets. But I was trying out Theo's. I would need to take more time to get used to them. They are like very, how do I call this? Very springy. As soon as you touch it a bit more, it becomes like boom.
Yeah.
Super heavy brass core. There's super good sound, but you'd have to get used to them. Maybe I would try with those. Also, then you need less strain to do like the fast runs as well. You would just do this and it would sound very nice. Also, if you're in a bigger hall, you need weight, you need projection, because also when you don't use so much amplitude with this stuff, it's very like, horizontal, lateral.
Sure.
And if you have heavy mallets, maybe a bit harder, then projection is also going to be better in a bigger room.
And I think Theo's mallets are also a thicker shaft diameter, and
they are hickory as well. So
hickory.
That's also indestructible almost.
Yeah. So the core then it's heavier because the weight of the shaft has increased. So you need balance. Therefore, the entire mallet is heavy. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's smart because to facilitate a lot of the technique, it almost makes it like holding 2 snare drumsticks in one hand, and you can do all those funky things that you're doing with a little bit less effort, but then you need more hand strength. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say with the mallets is I do like the weight of them. So if Theo's mallets are balanced and give you similar sound, maybe with a little bit more weight, that would be fine. But at one point I heard some rubber contact in the upper register that was almost out of character with all of the shimmery glowing stuff that you were doing on the middle to low end of the keyboard. So I would just look a little bit more into mallets that kind of have the same sound throughout the entire register of the movement for something like that, and see if you can find a mallet that doesn't change timbre. Because like you said, and I love that your intention is to do this, is to have a very consistent timbre to complement your dynamics. And I just think with that mallet, nothing against the mallets. I mean, they have a wide natural rubber core, which is something I use in a large ensemble. But if you have a lot of rubber around that cushioning the attack and a really tight mallet wrap, you really do hear that rubber contacting the marimba bar. Yeah. So just to think about.
I was also thinking about this. I was trying out. I don't know who I listened to. It might be Schiff, because he's my favorite, pretty much my favorite Bach interpreter on piano, of course. But another trick you could do is like play the repetition of the second minuet. You could move up an octave. So you play the second time of the A part minuet to up an octave, second time of minuet to B part up an octave, and then you would absolutely need harder mallets to have a good sound, because then you would just hear the case of the marimba rock with these, at least. What is it? 2 and 4, I think I played with.
Okay. So you did matching mallets in each hand as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
like 2 voices
musically, whether you use different mallets or not, that actually sounds very interesting to me. Is playing in different registers as kind of an homage to an artist that you respect. That's fine, because that artist probably spent a lot of time on this and decided that was musically valid. So yeah, I would be interested in hearing you do that. But definitely when you're in the first minuet and you come up to the notes on the higher octave, those mallets got a little slappy. So maybe finding a mallet with actually a little less head weight, or a rounder core, because if you have a round core, you have less direct attack. Yeah. So maybe something that has like a natural core, like the Živkovic, because he uses natural rubber cores, but in a round shape, will have less contact with the bar. So if this is, the bar here, this is a round mallet, there's only one point that's making definite contact. And then of course it smushes down a little bit, but the Živkovic core is like kind of like this block, and that whole block becomes almost compacted into the bar physically. So you're going to get more of a slap. It's like the equivalent of a conga slap if you have too flat a side of the core. So I think that's what we might be hearing underneath the yarn.
Okay.
Yeah. just a little thing. I make mallets a lot for various performances, and even though I play a lot of innovative percussion mallets, sometimes I'll have to adapt them a little bit for certain halls or for certain other venues, like recording venues. So just take charge of the sound. Not that you're not doing that. Everything's great. But if this is a consideration that you're already having, just maybe considering a rounder core could also help.
Yeah, that's very good. Great.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, you're playing really well. I don't need to say any more. Do you have any questions? Because I know I'm not a big marimbist, but if you have anything.
Yeah. Well, it's not maybe related to these two recordings, but about the Kyoto thing. just to note so that we catch up. Is the mix in the making, or you want me to? I was thinking of maybe I try mixing once my part, and just so then we could maybe like compare what our vision is in terms of the percussion part. I might try this if I have time, just for fun, just to see what comes out.
Yeah, I already basically mixed your original. I didn't need to use all the different mic angles you sent. But if you want to give it a shot, go ahead. What I would do in that instance is I might send you a version without your part of the parts that are previously mixed.
Yeah, nice.
And then you can kind of have a little bit more leeway into what you think would be musically appropriate to complement what's already mixed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
so Noah's going to be recording
into consideration.
Yeah, Noah will be recording tonight or tomorrow. So by Monday, I might be able to have something for you.
Yeah, cool. Great.
Great,
nice.
man.
Thank you
so much for playing. Great job.
Big pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Jan. Nice job. I think that's everyone that's going to be showcased tonight. So, Garrett, thanks for your time.
We almost got to 2.5 hours, even with one less person. So
that's all good. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Whilst I end the stream tomorrow, we've got Ji Hei is going to be joined by Megan, who's presenting tomorrow. So